Welcome to our pod, and by that I mean on Wednesdays we read. I'm Hannah.
I'm Laura.
And we are two best friends who do a deep dive into a new book series, one book at a time. Right now we are in the Murderbot Diaries, and and we're covering the characters and themes of Network Effect by Martha Wells. Martha Wells. Martha. But before we get into it, Laura, what are you reading, watching, and or enjoying?
Okay, I watched the Puss in Boots movie on Peacock.
Oh, how was that? I've heard
it
good
was really
things.
cute. It was really
good.
cute. I really liked it. So basically the premise is that cats have 9 lives and Puss in Boots has led a reckless life, so he's down to his last. And he can go and seek out this wishing star and wish for more lives so he can keep going. And I thought the whole premise of the movie was just a really beautiful thing, and how you should, not just throw away your life, but cherish that you have one life to live,
right?
And that you should make the most of it, but also not live in fear. And because when Puss thought that he only just had the one life left, he was just living in fear. So I thought it was a good message, and it's actually really beautiful to look at. Maybe this is just the way that they've kind of changed DreamWorks animation, but it's a lot more colorful, or maybe just this movie. Who knows? I haven't watched a lot of DreamWorks stuff.
It's been a while.
Yeah, honestly, I feel like I can only recall watching the Shrek franchise. I don't know a lot of DreamWorks movies.
Was it El Dorado Shrek?
Yes, The Road to El Dorado.
El Dorado Shrek.
That was not Shrek. But it was DreamWorks. But I want to say that was before Shrek.
Oh, I remember
that was just like
Spirit
cartoon,
Untamed,
wasn't it?
Or I remember Spirit. That was a pretty colorful
movie.
Spirit.
Mm-hmm.
How to Train Your Dragon.
Oh, How to Train Your Dragon. I have seen those. Okay, so I have seen some DreamWorks, but Puss in Boots is just very colorful and just a lot of like neon colors. And it was really unique too, because it was almost like the animation style that you see in Shrek mixed with more of like a 2D cartoon type.
Yeah.
At times, and also like somewhat anime. I don't know how to describe it.
Oh,
really
that's fun. It's a different style. I like it.
Yeah, it was really unique and just a really pretty movie to look at, and then also just had a really sweet message. So if you're looking for a good kids movie to watch, I'd highly recommend that.
I do like the theme, and this reminded me of a podcast I was listening to today where they were talking about like how people in their 20s and 30s are always like, oh, I'm so old. And it's like 30 isn't that old. You have
I say that all the time.
A long time to live. Well, and I think about that with like, I have a lot of friends, and I've talked about this probably on the podcast before, but like as a youngest child, I never think I'm old because I don't think my oldest sister's old yet.
Mm-hmm.
And she's 10 years older than me. So I'm like, okay, well, 42 isn't old, so I can't be old yet. And I think that like not enough people have that mindset. Too many people are like, oh, look at all these youths underneath me. And I'm like, yeah, but like, would you want to be them again? Like, you're still not old. It's not like you're 80. Like, there's so many other problems in this world than like you becoming a 30-year-old person. Like,
I think I've just had a lot of moments recently though, where I've been like recognizing like, oh, because there's this like weird thing in my mind where I like feel like I'm so close in age to high schoolers, and it's like, no, you're like double their age. And it's been almost 15 years since I've been in high school, so it's like a weird thing for me to like try to rationalize with myself that no, you actually are twice the age of high schoolers while still thinking that I am that young,
right?
This is like a weird age in time for me, I guess, where I'm trying to reconcile with being like in this like still young but not super young group.
Are you saying that a la Britney Spears, you're not a girl but not yet a woman?
Yes. Honestly, okay. I have this issue too where like people my age, I'll be like, oh, that girl over there, or I'll say, well, I guess she's not a girl, she's however old. And I'm like, but that seems too young to call her a woman. So, so I'm like, what do you call somebody like
that person?
Just person all the time.
Yeah,
like
that person over there. Like,
I mean, I'm thinking of people that I actually know, that I know their pronouns and everything, that I would feel comfortable like saying woman or lady or girl to. But I'm like, do I just say person? Like, I don't know. I always like refer to myself as girl, and then I'm like, no, I need to start changing because it's not girl anymore. I don't know. You got to change it up.
I'm an adult. I do adult things. I'm not a girl anymore.
I know that it's so weird. It's weird to figure out, like, but lady seems strange.
I would say woman.
I guess woman. That also seems old to me. I don't know. It's weird to like try to decide where I fit in that.
I don't.
It just feels old to me.
Because like, does man feel old to you?
Yes, but most of the time I like to use it as a dig. Like, those men. Stick it to the man. That type of thing.
Man. Okay, well, at least
and that way,
having fun.
Yeah, I don't know where this rant is going, but these are just random thoughts that I have about my age and trying to decide whether I call myself and other like young women my age, whether it's girl, woman, or lady. I can't decide.
I don't know. I've never thought about it very much because I think I've accepted that I am a lady or a woman at this point in my life.
Lady Hannah.
No, but I'm not very like, oh, I feel very with my age. I don't know. I feel specifically 32. So
I feel younger. Like, I always feel like when people ask me how old I am, it takes me a minute now to be like, oh, 30. And soon it will no longer be 30. But it takes me a minute because for some reason, like in my mind, I like kind of locked in at 26.
Oh, okay.
Thought that like, oh yeah, I'm 26. And that was just like an age that like kind of stuck with me for a while, that I was like, oh yeah, I'm 26.
Wasn't that the year you got married? Was when you were 26?
No, I got married at 24.
So I don't know. Maybe you're like, well, I really came into my own marriage at 26.
I don't know that that's true either. But yeah, I don't know what it is. I have a hard time like trying to figure out like how I actually relate to my own age. And it's weird too that we're talking about this because I had just seen someone from high school that I was friends with over the weekend, and he and I were talking about like feeling old or like not feeling old at the same time, where it's like we were talking about, and he also mentioned that, he moved away from our hometown. I still live in our hometown, and he had seen some people that he had known from growing up in the area, and they didn't recognize him. And he was like, I didn't think I looked that different. And it's also just like a weird thing to be like, oh, you've moved away and come back and you don't feel like you've changed, but you have changed, and people change a lot, really, that you don't see someone for several years and you don't recognize them. It's a weird thing. So time and aging are strange.
I will say in defense, like, we are one of the first, like, because our parents in their 30s were like multiple children doing everything. And I do think millennials usually have like 1 to 2 children. So there's less, so they have them later. And like someone pointed out that like, do millennials get midlife crises because our entire lives have been crisis?
Yeah, so like, when does it start? When's our midlife?
Yeah, like, well, because technically like the oldest millennials are in their 40s, which is midlife crisis time. But it's like,
they've already had several. Oh
yeah, like they haven't had time to like really sit with their job long enough to need to get out of it. And like they barely own the cars they bought in the first place. So it's just like, oh, do millennials actually get midlife crises the way that other people did before us? And it's just like, probably not. And we'll get blamed for it. So
why not? That's the other word I like to say with just like,
but yeah, what a weird deep dive to go on that started with Laura saw Puss in Boots this week.
I mean, it is kind of all related.
Yeah. But also very funny because it does show that like
These are just thoughts I have.
Well,
there's nowhere that there's no direction that this is going, this conversation.
And the fact that like right now, a lot of the media is meant for like children and or their parents. So we're getting into the golden age of cartoons meant for millennials. And so right. Puss in Boots having an existential crisis just seems very on par with every millennial ever. It's just like, do I feel too old or am I too young? What am I doing wrong?
I mean, can relate. I relate.
Have you
Hannah,
been reading anything?
read Paper Girls Volume 1.
How was it?
It was okay. Here's my thing. I think I was expecting more because people hyped it up so much.
Oh no.
It was fine.
Yeah.
It's really pretty and it was like cute and very Stranger Things-esque.
Okay. I like Stranger Things.
I will keep reading it probably, and I do want to watch the TV show at some point.
Me too.
So it was just okay for me. I really think this is one of those things where, like, had I not gotten all the hype from Bookstagram, that I maybe would have liked it more.
That's fair. Honestly, we've all been there.
And this happens to me time to time. I've complained about it before, but this is one that people hyped it up and it failed for me. It was too hyped up.
I get that. Sometimes you just want to be whelmed.
Yeah, exactly. I don't want to be over or under. I just want to be whelmed.
I think you're in Europe. 10 points for anyone who can tell me where that came from.
Amazing. So I also watched chapter 19 of The Mandalorian.
Ooh, how was it?
It was an excellent episode. It was an excellent chapter of the TV show. This was one that very much reminded me of Andor and the direction that show went, where it was very political, where you couldn't trust certain characters, where things switched really quickly. And I do like that in this season, they are starting to take the show not always in the Grogu and Mandalorian are going on another adventure. Here's another one. Here's another one. Here's another one. And that they're kind of highlighting some of these other characters, these side characters that were brought in previous seasons that we didn't get to sit with very long. And we're getting to have a little more background info on them. And I think that that's important for the show, like moving forward, because it gives it more depth. And then it also kind of expands the universe a little. So then if they want to keep this show going an infinite amount of time so that we can someday see Pedro Pascal's face for longer than just like 5 seconds, then we can like continue to do things like this where we have these really cool episodes. But I hope people weren't disappointed by this episode because I thought it was really neat. But then again, it's very much along the lines of Andor. So
now that I know you don't see Pedro Pascal's face enough, I don't want to watch The Mandalorian. Why?
Do you not did you not know that you don't see his face hardly at all?
No, Laura, I know nothing about The Mandalorian. Like people have
the way you talked about it. I kind of assumed you'd watched it. And then...
I've never seen a single episode of The Mandalorian. I just let you talk about it because I know it has Pedro Pascal, and I know that The Mandalorian was a character in the Star Wars universe before Pedro Pascal became the Mandalorian.
Yeah, Mandalorians were involved in the Star Wars universe.
Yes, and he's just one of them, I guess. But I know very little about this show. I know that there's a Baby Yoda, and it's not a Baby Yoda because contractually they cannot call it Yoda or something. Like it's not supposed to be Yoda. It's just one of the.
His name is Grogu. His name is Grogu. Because Pedro Pascal has said in many interviews I think Graham Norton called him Baby Yoda.
Yeah.
And he was like, I was in a scene with Baby Yoda. And he says, I shouldn't call him that. His name is Grogu.
Yeah.
They're listening or something like that.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
Disney was listening to it.
I saw that clip from Graham Norton. So that's why I corrected myself because he's like, oh, this is the first time I've called him Baby Yoda. It was an accident. Like, but I told you that I was pretty sure that I thought Andor and Mandalorian were the same show until you started watching them. So who could have known?
The Mandalorian is very much like a family vibe and show, but Andor is more, I think, geared towards adults.
Okay. Interesting.
But there's not as many puppets in Andor. So.
Oh, okay. I thought you were gonna say there weren't as many puppets in The Mandalorian. I'm like,
No, Grogu is a puppet. So
well, yeah, but I just figured it would be that way. If you were like there weren't as many puppets in The Mandalorian, I would have been like, didn't think it was gonna go that direction.
Interesting.
That's a
there are not enough puppets.
Not enough puppets in the one for family friendly stuff, but tons of puppets. A little bit of Team America.
I do think going forward in Andor, they need to add more of like the different alien species because there were not enough in Andor, but they have lots of them in Mandalorian.
Honestly, like when you're talking about them, I have to remind myself which one is which. Like I can't keep them. Well,
and then like the Book of Boba Fett is just kind of a spin-off of the Mandalorian. So, and it's a Jon Favreau project too. So it's very much like all in the same feels, and you have a lot of the similar characters, and they're all overlapping and everything. So.
And Boba Fett is the one who is a
Jango
clone.
Fett's son, who is a clone of Jango Fett.
That's what I thought. Okay.
Yes. Yeah, they are Mandalorians. They are Mandalorians.
Oh, they're Mandalorians. So do we see their faces very often?
Yes, you do. But you learn more in the show The Mandalorian that this is not only just like it's a culture, basically. And a lot of the Mandalorians have fallen away and don't follow the culture strictly. I'm hesitant to say it's a religion because I'm not for sure, but it seems like somewhat along those lines of being a religion. I'm hesitant to say that though, because I'm not sure. Star Wars fans come at me.
But don't come at me because I don't remember which one's which, okay? That's my business and it's not your business.
You can come at me, Laura, because I love talking about Star Wars. My husband does not.
Wait, your husband hasn't been enjoying this?
He likes to watch them, but I talk about it a lot, and so he gets annoyed with me. And just like every now and then, just like throughout the day, he and I work together. So I will just like say, "This is the way," and he gets very annoyed. It makes me laugh.
I mean, you got to do things to make yourself happy.
But yeah, the Mandalorians, like part of their culture and their vows are to like keep their faces covered. Okay. So the ones that are like very much within following this very strict, I want to say religion
way.
This very strict way, they do keep their faces covered. But then you come across these other Mandalorians who have the armor and have a lot of the relics and everything, and even some of them that grew up in Mandalore, they do not follow these same things that Din Djarin does.
Interesting.
So
and his name is Din Djarin. It's not
Pedro Pascal. They do not call him Pedro Pascal in the Mandalorian.
Well, I'm out. They gave him a name other than Pedro Pascal or the Mandalorian.
What? He does not go by Pedro Pascal.
How dare? How dare?
I think that show is probably garbage.
What a weird stance to take. I only like my TV shows where they have the same the first name as their and last name as their real life person. You
would enjoy The Office because a lot of the people in The Office have the same name that they do in real life. Because like Angela,
I don't think I ever recognized that.
Oscar and Creed, and a bunch of them, they actually use their real names.
Hannah's favorite
not
character
last
from
name,
that show, Creed. Creed
is bizarre.
He's my favorite. The stuff that came out of his mouth was just so ridiculous.
Mung beans in his desk and
oh my
all
God.
the other things.
There's a weird smell coming from Creed's desk. I know what that is. I grow mung beans in my they're very nutritional. Terrible smell.
His blog, which is just a Word document that he's typing in, and
I've read some of it before. It's terrifying even for that.
Just great.
Ryan did some things correctly, including not unleashing Creed onto the world. Yes, I was in a cult for a while. Okay, so you've been watching that. You've been
I think that's about all I've been. It's been a busy week, so that's about all I've got for new stuff at the moment. I'm close to finishing Goodbye to the Sun by Jonathan Nevair, and very much enjoying it. And again, I will shout out Andor. If you enjoy Andor, you would enjoy this book. It gives me a lot of those vibes.
Ooh, good to know, guys. If you remember what Andor is and which one's Andor and which one's the Mandalorian, you know.
If you've seen them, you would know. Anna has not seen them, so she's having a hard time placing the previews in her mind.
I don't understand the vibes. I know this, it's probably not family friendly, guys.
I will also shout out, though, that Jonathan's book, Stellar Instinct, got a new cover, which is awesome. So if you're looking for a good read, the spy-fi
similar
thriller,
to the Mandalorian.
No, I would not say that this is similar to the Mandalorian. It's a spy-fi thriller, very cool, and has some awesome characters, and the new cover is pretty sweet. So check that out and maybe give it a little buy.
Buy that, guys.
All right, Hannah, what have you been reading and watching?
Well, I told you guys I would get back to you. I talk about it a little bit on an upcoming episode we have with Fiction Fans Podcast, but I saw Scream 6, and guys, I really liked it. It was very good. It has one of the best first kill scenes in the entire series as a whole. Usually like the first kill, like, I don't know how much you know. Have we talked about this on the podcast in the couple of weeks I've been talking about Scream?
None of the Scream movies.
Okay, but you know the story behind Drew Barrymore in the Scream, right?
Nope.
Okay, so small spoilers for the first movie of Scream in this 6-movie franchise, everyone.
Okay.
Originally, Drew Barrymore was hired on to be the main character of Scream. And then through contractual issues, she couldn't be the character. But no one knew that going into the movie. Mm-hmm. And so the movie starts out using Drew Barrymore with the Ghostface killer on the phone, like calls her and asks her what her favorite scary movie is. And Drew Barrymore dies within the first 10 minutes of the movie. And it was like a huge shock when it first came out because everyone thought she was going to be in the movie. They thought she was going to be the primary character. She was even
they're like, oh, they got Drew Barrymore. So
yeah. So why wouldn't you use her? That was like during her big like era. And she was even on the movie poster, like it was her eyes with the phone. And so Scream from then on got known for like really big first kill scenes, like very surprising ones. Like the second one takes place in a movie theater with all these people watching stab movies, which are in universe. They're like the Scream movies, but told from like, this really happened in this small town in California, you know, and they made movies about it based on these books that Gail Weathers wrote. So like each first kill is a very, very big deal. And this one was very, very good. I thought it was shocking in a way I haven't seen in a while. So I really liked it. And I liked the movie overall. There were a couple of like criticisms about it that were very valid. Just about like some of the decisions they made. And a lot of times the Scream movies are a little bit more about commenting on horror films as they stand today. And it like didn't talk about that as much as they could have. But they kind of instead decided to just do a straightforward, like, oh, this is going to be different kind of thing, which I didn't actually mind because I just had so much fun with it and I really like these movies. But it's also the first one without the original final girl in it. So that was interesting because she's been in every single one before that.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yes, hello, Sydney is like a huge thing. And in the last one, they introduced a new character and she's like taken over the helm. So, but it's a little bit different. Like it was just really well done. I really thought that the way they took these movies was great. They make it more like she has a younger sister and they make it a lot. And the younger sister is
Jenna Ortega.
And they take it into like the sister realm and like their relationship a lot, which has good stakes instead of like, here's more of this woman's trauma and like how she can trust nobody. So it's helpful and it's refreshing. So I very much enjoyed that, guys. I would say it's probably my second or third favorite of the entire
Did you say the Scream 4 was your favorite?
Scream 1 is my favorite.
Scream 1 is your favorite. Okay.
Yeah. Scream 4 this time around, I appreciated so much more. And then Scream 5 on rewatch, I've liked very greatly. I would say Scream 1, Scream 5, and Scream 6 are the best ones, but I do love Scream 2, and I have it really highly ranked because it's like got a special place in my heart because one of the other ones that I've rewatched the most. So
Okay.
I really just like these movies. They're my faves, guys. And go watch Scream 6 because it was really good. And I think that they've pretty much said that they're making Scream 7 because it's gotten a huge box office. And
Nice.
why wouldn't you? But for reading, I read You Should See Me in a Crown.
I love that by Leah Johnson.
Yes, Laura has already talked about this on the pod once before, but
yeah, like a couple years ago.
She listened to the audiobook on it. I listened to the audiobook as well. It's about a young queer Black girl who runs for prom queen in order to get a scholarship.
Yeah.
To help her pay for college. It's about like her and her family. Her brother has sickle cell. Her mother died of sickle cell disease. So it has a lot of background on that. It deals with family. It deals with everything. I loved the book. I gave it 5 stars. I will say if I had the smallest bit of critique, I thought the like evil person in it was a little bit too villainous evil. Like usually they have a redemption arc for her. And it was just like, oh no, she's literally terrible.
Mm-hmm.
And like, that's fine. I honestly, like, it's the smallest of critiques because I do think sometimes we make like mean people have a redemption arc too often.
Sure.
But like there was
sometimes people are just bad.
Yeah, sometimes people are just bad, but like nothing was good about this girl and she was just terrible. And I was like, wow, you'd think she have a little bit more nuance than that, but you know, whatever. I really liked the book. I liked the friendships. I liked the discussions that like the book. I read Laura's review and she talked about how it felt like watching a movie, and I would agree with that response. And I would also say that this was very much a YA book that felt like you were dealing with teenagers. Like the teenagers kept making stupid decisions that I was like,
sure.
Yeah, an adult likely wouldn't act this way, but if you're dealing with 17-year-olds, like they're going to react this way. And I appreciate that in YA books because I don't think we let teenagers be teens enough when you're reading media. Sure. We always like want them to be better than that, and it's like, why? They're
the 15.
Like, who cares? Let a kid be a kid for a while. Like Laura and I were saying, you can only be young once, and
then blink and you're in your midlife millennial crisis.
Midlife millennial crisis that you don't get to have because the
trying
world's
to
on
decide
fire.
Which is the Mandalorian and which is Andor.
And sorry guys if I sound a little raspy. I'm a little sick this week. But yeah, you only get to live once. That's the motto, YOLO.
YOLO, Puss in Boots.
YOLO, Puss in... If you remember anything from this episode, YOLO,
Puss in Boots. Title of the episode. Got it.
We got it in the can. But yeah, so I read You Should See Me in a Crown. I liked it very much.
Love it.
And yeah, I've been getting a little bit more back into audiobooks recently because I feel like I've had like a little bit of a flop era when it comes to picking up a book and then not being able to read it. So I'm leaning into the more audiobooks right now. So send me your recs, guys, for good audiobook recommendations. But with that, Laura, should we dive in?
Let's do it.
All right. So this was probably my least favorite of the Murderbot books.
Wow, you're really diving in.
I'm really diving in. I'm just gonna like flag that out there for everyone. Okay. Just because it felt a little bit like one of our avid listeners described it best as like 2 novellas at a trench coat. And because of that, the pacing in the first novella felt a little bit off with the second novella, almost like the first half.
I guess I didn't get the novella feel.
It just felt
because
like
it didn't feel like there was good like stopping. Like this is one fluid. Like this is one story to me. It doesn't feel like it's 2 stories. You know what I mean? Like her other novellas, they had like a stopping point and then like a new thing started up and there was no like stopping point. So I guess that's why I don't know if I necessarily buy the novella thing.
Well, I just think because like the first novella was like saving art, and sometimes she does have a little bit of a cliffhanger where it's like in the next book you have that because like you have.
But usually it's like new characters and everything introduced. So I guess that's why I'm just like, I didn't get that feeling.
Yeah, and that's fair, but I just didn't love the pacing of the first half and then the second half was like all the plot, and I was just like, there was a lot leading up to this.
The first half is very much like a setup and a background that she stretched out. Usually in her novellas, she gives us like the first chapter or so, which is kind of like a recap, like here's what you missed on Murderbot. Right. And then you start to kind of work into it. And in this one, it was like the first several chapters. And right. then when we're finally like aware of like, oh, this is art, that's when things start to pick up.
Right.
But I think that this was a really unique novel compared to the novellas because it added in these extra layers of like Murderbot going through trauma, literally, and dealing with that. And then also like acknowledging like the people that it cares about also need to get help for the things that have happened to them in the past, and also trying to acknowledge like, hey, yeah, bad things have happened to me and I'm not ready to deal with them yet, but I'm going to do my therapy homework, but I'm still going to redact certain things. We learned that in this book particularly that Murderbot is not a really reliable narrator, and I think a lot of times we trust Murderbot too much in the previous novellas.
Yeah, I guess maybe I still trust Murderbot. But also, I mean, I don't know if we always trusted Murderbot because like a lot of times, sorry, my mind's going everywhere. I do agree with you that I like that this has like real world stakes in this novel where we are seeing Murderbot like say, no, I do have trauma. No, I do have to deal with this. And other people do too. Cause I think that doesn't happen enough in action packed novels where people are like, okay, now it's done. And it's just like, okay, but like what happened?
What are the repercussions of this?
Yeah. And a book that I read that I didn't particularly love that book, but Chosen Ones by Veronica Roth did that, where it was like, oh, after everyone saves the world, what happens to the people who had to deal with all that trauma of saving the world?
Right.
And I do think like we don't discuss that enough. And I definitely like that in this book. But I also think sometimes I got a little frustrated because it did seem like we were reading Murderbot's therapy notes, and we're learning about Murderbot right now. And we learned that it's not a reliable narrator, but then it's almost like it gets a little bit undercut when we find out it's not reliable because it's sending these transmissions to the other bot. And I think that just kind of frustrated me a little because I was like, oh, I guess that makes it have narrative purpose, but then it weakens the talk a little bit less because I liked it more when we were getting a look at like almost a journal Murderbot was keeping for itself, and it was redacting it even for itself, but then it had to have narrative purpose, and I think that disappointed me a little.
I guess I feel differently. I don't know if I was disappointed by it. I feel like if anything, Martha Wells tries really hard to make all these things connect, so that they do all kind of like come for full circle. And I think maybe I just appreciate that about it.
Yeah. And maybe I don't. And knowing us, we are two different people where you love everything tied up. And sometimes I'm like, oh no, leave me with an open-ended, like, this is just meant to give us a little bit of an insight into Murderbot. And I liked the effectiveness of like reading the redacted material about like, oh, this entire time, people haven't just been saying the company. That's Murderbot's own redactions throughout this entire series has been putting the company instead of the name of the actual company, and we don't even know its name. I love that section of this novel where we found that out. That's fascinating. And it talks about like how that's falling back on old habits where like Bartois is just asking Murderbot like, why would you do that? You're not owned by them. You get to talk about them openly. And Murderbot like, yeah, even talk about the fact that it had that conversation with Bartois. I think that says a lot about Murderbot, where it's like, yes, it is dealing with some of its trauma, but it's also not dealing with all of it. Like it only wants to deal with bits and pieces that it's comfortable with right now.
Yeah, I really think it's relatable to see Murderbot like react in this way to things that have happened. So I really loved that aspect of it, where it was like, even when it's communicating with Bartois, it's redacting and it can't explain or doesn't explain why it's redacting the company name, even though it no longer works for the company, because there's still this link and this feeling of what's going to happen. And there's also just kind of like this dark cloud that's always going to be kind of hanging around Murderbot, wondering like, is something going to happen? Can I go to this thing with Dr. Mensa, or do I need to get Dr. Mensa out of there because things are going to happen? Or so, and yeah, that's just kind of a theme that I think we're going to have to sit with for a little while to figure out like how the events of previous books affect the characters going forward. I do think though that there were some interesting like characters that were brought into this book that are still kind of tied into Dr. Mensa, but are different characters. So it's not always like fully about Dr. Mensa, because we have her daughter, Amena, and then we have, why do I want to say it's the brother-in-law? Is it the
Thiago? Because it is her brother-in-law. It's
okay.
Thiago. Yeah.
I was going to say brother, but I wasn't sure if Thiago was the brother-in-law or brother.
I'm pretty sure it's brother-in-law.
Okay. But Thiago is an interesting character because Murderbot initially kind of thinks that Thiago is an enemy and that it can't be trusted, or it can't trust Thiago. And if anything, I would say that Thiago doesn't come from a place of like not trusting Murderbot and thinking that Murderbot's not capable, the way that Murderbot is kind of internalizing things. But Thiago is more so coming from the standpoint of, you've made our lives different and I don't know how to feel about you. And I think that that's an interesting character to bring into this, because then it has Murderbot start to question itself and how things have changed because of it. Well, and so I think that's interesting. And then you have a similar thing with Amena, who is like kind of breaking through this shell that Murderbot has up, where it's like, I don't like adolescence, and Amena is getting through that shell and becoming friends with Art and giving emotions to Murderbot. So you have some cool characters that come into this.
I definitely am interested in the character of Thiago, very much so, because I feel like in the characters of Amena and Thiago, we get a little bit more flavor of things that Murderbot mentioned about the first survey group in the first book, where like Murderbot keeps talking about like, these people are so naive. They just seem to think everything will work out. They seem to want to believe the best in everyone, and they can't do that because this world is messy and you can't trust everyone because we live in this capitalist society.
And then you finally have that in Thiago, who is questioning things.
Who is sitting there being like, well, the danger, you brought the danger. And it's like, no, I didn't bring the danger. Your crew brought the danger. I just watched them walk into it and tried to stop them when I could and tried to manage the danger. And Thiago like wants to believe it's Murderbot's fault, because Murderbot technically like is seen as this creature that brings death and destruction, where Murderbot is like has worked on itself so much to recognize that that's not all it is. Like, it's a part of it, but it's not all of it. And I think it feels incredibly devalued by Thiago, where it's like, I'm more than that, and I don't bring these things to my door. I just happen to have them because I'm trying to help humans, and humans are the messy thing. Like, how could you not see this? It's so objectively true, you know? And so I do feel for Murderbot in those takes, because it's just like, it's coming from Thiago's privilege to not understand how this is how the world works. And poor Murderbot is the one who like suffers for it, kind of, because Thiago doesn't trust it. Thiago does devalue it. And you're right, like certain things Murderbot is internalizing aren't true, but at the same time, Thiago is treating Murderbot like it's this it's all the worst things about it that it's been working away from. And it's revealing to Murderbot where it's like, I'm in this safe space with all these people who value me, and I can still be devalued by someone on their team if they see fit. And like, I do like in this book that no one lets Thiago get away with that. Or like, there are moments where they're like, Murderbot has to go with Thiago in this. And like, Thiago has to learn that he's wrong. It's not that Murderbot always has to learn that it's wrong.
No, I definitely think there's a duality there where they're both learning and growing as people. And I think that Wells does this intentionally, where you have characters that are learning to overcome prejudices and biases that they have, and that Murderbot itself has to overcome its own biases and understand like look, not all humans are dumb. Not all people are going to hate me, and that not all other like constructs are going to be less than me, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, and I do like that Thiago has like almost a foil in Amena, because Amena has a lot of the same like privilege of not being scared of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But Amena is the flip side, where she doesn't come in with any preconceived notions about a sec unit, where she's just like, yeah, you seem overprotective because everything's still fine. And so like Thiago has to learn, like, I'm not the one who brought the trouble. The trouble was here all along, and I've been protecting them overall. And then with Amena, it's like, well, you're just being overprotective. And it's like, no, there is literal danger everywhere, and you don't seem to get it. And then Amena has to learn, like, oh, okay, but you see someone who like values Murderbot for what it brings to the table versus someone who wants to like blame Murderbot.
Yeah, I think that they're both characters that, in my mind, purposely are brought in because they humanize Murderbot. And Murderbot hates the F word, feelings.
Yes.
But they both evoke feelings in Murderbot. And sometimes it can't explain them. A lot of times it can't explain them. But these characters evoke feelings in Murderbot and are, like you said, they're foils of each other. And I really enjoy how they are brought in and how they still connect us to Dr. Mensah and to previous characters, but how they kind of flip what we've been reading about.
I do appreciate them a lot in that. And we still get to have like flavors of the older characters that always like feel like they bring comedic relief.
How do you feel about like mentions of like Dr. Mensah and Murderbot like being like in love with each other? Or
I find it so interesting because it's also one of those things that we talk about in lots of media where people don't know how to discuss relationships that aren't sexual. Like they're like, it's something where like I also learned about this in like when I was an English major, like you have different types of romance, and it's not all sexual romance. Like there is like familial romance, and there's like, so this is almost like a romance of friendship. And everyone just misconstrues that because no one can understand something that isn't sexual in nature. So they're like, oh, you two are just in love with each other. Or they're putting like, oftentimes in these books, humans put on human emotions on Murderbot that aren't justified. Like Murderbot has feelings, but Murderbot has frustration because it can't tell a human what its feelings are without them trying to like ascribe it something different. So it's like humans are trying to relate to Murderbot, but in doing so, they put the wrong feeling on it. So like Murderbot has like a deep love for Mensah that is like not romantic whatsoever, but it is like or not sexually romantic, but it is romantic in the way like of how deep it goes and how much they're connected to one another. And when people are like, oh, you're in love with Dr. Mensah, it's like you're devaluing the relationship we have because you're not ascribing to it the actual emotion I'm feeling. And like that has to be hard for something, especially something like Murderbot, who feels devalued all the time and who is constantly trying to explain itself and like going through the emotions of learning how it feels and what it needs to do. Because like when it has that blow up at Amena where she's like, are you mad at me? And it's like, yeah, do you want me to list the ways? And it's just like, it's getting so frustrated. And then finally, like it has this outburst that's so human of like, you know, when you're going on something and you have a million things going in your head, and then all of a sudden you start crying because like they didn't have the chocolate at the store, and someone's like, oh my God, it's because of the chocolate. It's like, no, it's because I'm miserable. And like, I just had everything go wrong. And this was the one thing I was expecting to go right. And then I lost everything, you know? So I do think like with Murderbot, it's just like, no, I lost my friend. I'm grieving because like no one understands what this like ship was to me and how important the ship is. And now it's gone. And you guys just see it as like a machine, and that's not what it is. So, yeah.
I think you're getting at what I was also thinking about Art and Murderbot's relationship, that you've hit it perfectly, where it's like they devalue the relationship a little bit by, I shouldn't say a little bit, they devalue the relationship by assuming that it's only like a romantic relationship. But there's so much more to their Dr. Mensa and Murderbot's relationship, especially because they have, I mentioned this previously, but they do have trauma bonding. And I also think though that the same type of feelings are put on Perihelion or Art and Murderbot, thinking that they are like romantically involved, which mortifies them.
Yeah.
But they also have such a deep connection and are so connected to each other on like so many levels and that are really just indescribable to them,
right?
That because they've literally like been inside of each other's minds is the only way that I can really describe it. And they've shared so many experiences that it's so much more than just a romantic thing.
Yes.
And when Murderbot finds out that Art possibly is dead, like it's devastated,
right?
Because it has such a strong connection with Perihelion or Art.
Well, and then like people also devalue Murderbot's betrayal of Art when it finds out that Art like led these people to Murderbot and put Murderbot's people in danger, because Murderbot's like, we both know how much we love the people we help, and you put mine in danger because you were in trouble, and like this is upsetting. You betrayed me. And everyone's kind of like, you need to forgive it. It's so much more powerful than you. You need to get over it. And Murderbot's just like, no, I don't. I was wrong.
I
and
get
like,
to sit in this. Like,
yeah, this is my friend. And like, yes, I know Art is more powerful than me, but that doesn't mean that it gets to treat me like that. We're friends. Like,
I think I don't know if it's a situation where it felt like they were siding with Art in my mind, but almost like they just belittled the situation in general. Like they didn't care what happened, but it was two constructs is how I kind of saw it, that it wasn't as important because it was two constructs. Had it been a human, they might have reacted differently, is kind of the way that I took it. And I do think it's interesting for Murderbot to stand up for itself and be like, no, this is wrong. Like Art isn't the only one that gets to like have its way all the time. Art doesn't just get to screw around with other people's lives, even if they're other constructs, just to serve itself. Like I have a goal. I have work that I do. I have people I care about. I have people I have to protect. And that's important to me. And Art does not respect that. Art puts itself above me, and that's not okay. So I do think it's interesting the way that the other humans react to it, because it does almost seem like they're just instantly kind of like, get over it, Murderbot, like it's fine. And I think that that's maybe just because they're constructs that they seem to care less.
And that's fair. I think I don't know, because part of me was like, it seems, yeah, you're right, it devalues it in a sense, but I think I looked at it a different way as like, not get over it, but like, because Murderbot's mad that Art put the people's lives in danger. Like it's less about how it treated Murderbot. And so I do think like the people, I think
on a certain level though, sorry to interrupt, Murderbot ties itself into it too.
Okay. Cause I think from where I was sitting, it was more about like the people almost devalue Murderbot's loyalty to them sometimes, where they're like, oh, we love you, but like, you need to get over it. It's not that big of a deal. And Murderbot's like, no, you guys don't understand how important it is for me to have free will. And I signed up for this contract to protect you. And then my friend betrayed that. And like, that is a deep betrayal, I feel. So I don't know if it's even like a get her over it. Like, I think we're both saying yes and to each other.
Yeah, I think we're saying the same thing.
Yeah. But it's interesting. Like this was a very deep plot between Murderbot and Art. And the fact that like Murderbot knows that Art wronged it, but in the end it's still like, I need to go travel with Art because I need to go see what this relationship between two constructs is, and like identify what we are to each other in a way that it obviously isn't romantic, but like, or isn't like sexual, but it's interested in seeing what we think and how we feel and how we work together, because we seem to be two constructs or, you know, entities that have a lot of free will and have a lot of feeling and emotions.
How did you feel about the whole plot of art basically being trapped in its own body, essentially, where it needed help from Murderbot?
I mean, it's just so sad. Like, it was just sad to like see art in that way, because like it feels even more of a violation than like if they had just killed art, because it's just like, oh, you guys decided it wasn't worthy of anything. And then you just like, again, it has to be hard for Murderbot to literally go on board its friend, find out it died, and then be riding around and it's like in effect its corpse. Like that is so upsetting and sad.
I also like had this moment when I was reading it and figuring out that like because I want to say that there actually is a moment where it's mentioned that art is like trapped inside of itself basically and can't get out. And there was a moment where I just like had a lot of feelings about that in general, because it reminded me a lot of like people with chronic illness and how they get trapped in their own bodies and how desperate people with chronic illness can be to seek help. And it made me think of art just knowing Murderbot could help me. Murderbot could help me, and doing whatever it could to make sure that Murderbot could help it get out.
Right.
And so that desperation was just really devastating and relatable to me.
Right.
That I really felt connected to that. And it was also hard for me, like in the beginning when Murderbot was like sulking around and so mad at art, because I was like, do you understand what art was going through? Being trapped in a vessel, like can't get out, can't express any of its thoughts or any of its feelings or anything. It's literally just stuck. And I was like, oh, the complicated things that come up just in this situation and how complex everything becomes is props to Martha Wells. I mean, very, very well done.
Well, and I think that goes back to your devaluation, because like, what is more devalued than a chronic illness that people can't see and identify? Because like, and that goes, it kind of hits all the things we've been talking about, where it's like, it's devalued emotions, it's devalued feelings. And then it's this belief that like, it's not real pain if they can't see it. So like, obviously these two entities can get over it because they're just two constructs. It doesn't matter. And like, that's very similar to the way that chronic illness is treated in the world. And like, it's very disheartening when you find out that like art went through that. And like, obviously I do agree with you that like I wanted Murderbot to forgive art, because it was like, well, art was about to die. It was not like in its most, it was just reaching out for help, and it knew you could help and it trusted you. But I also do understand where Murderbot is like, well, if you just put my life in danger, that's one thing, but my entire crew, like I had this child on board with me, I had this, and like, you do need to apologize for that. And I do like that, like while art can be in the right with what it did, I do like that art had to apologize to Murderbot for doing what it did, because it understands like, this affected me, this hurt me, and like, you have to apologize for that.
Right.
But I love art so much. I love how much art loves children. Like,
art loves adolescent humans so much.
What do you think about Murderbot finally overriding the governor module of another entity?
I figured something like that was going to eventually happen. And I kind of thought it would happen before now.
Yeah.
It would have gotten to the point where it was like, you know what? I think other people need to have some free will here. So I'm surprised it took this long, honestly, is what I was kind of thinking with it.
I do wonder if it's very important for Murderbot to have permission from these beings. And it's a very hard decision to walk into. It's, you know, not to take it into this, but like, it's the whole Matrix issue of like, you can take the red pill or you can take the blue pill. Like and it's like, I think it would be easy to assume that why wouldn't you want to take the red pill? I believe it. I've never seen The Matrix.
I
But
have
it's like,
not either. Oops.
why wouldn't you want your eyes opened up to the world? Why wouldn't you want this? And like deciding that for someone. And I think that it's deeply respectful of Murderbot to be like, yeah, it would be easy to judge these sec units and say, like, of course you want your governor module overtaken. But I do like that Murderbot like just wants to give it the information it needs to make that decision. And then it will do it if and when the sec unit approves of that happening. And I do really like that that's the way Martha Wells took it, instead of this like every sec unit has to be free.
Consent is key.
Consent is key.
Martha Wells knows that. So I learned recently that Martha Wells apparently has a degree in anthropology.
Oh, well, that makes sense.
So a lot of this makes sense. The understanding and the relationships, the understanding of and the way that relationship dynamics are played out. So I think a lot of this is pointed meant to be deep and complicated and not really have an answer.
Right.
So
well, and this also like what a theme to start exploring other than like a colony that was left to die. Like that is like way to throw Thiago and Amena into the thick of it of like, hey, guess what? Corporations are evil and they really didn't care about humanity. And you guys were just, and I also like that, like, there's like, obviously Murderbot values these people because they're its people, but Murderbot also isn't going to be like, well, it's because their utopian society worked. Murderbot's kind of like, it was kind of just luck of the draw. You guys got lucky, and like that's a privilege too to get this lucky that you didn't have any issues. Like you guys don't seem to get it. Lots of people got the short end of the stick with this stuff, and you're just one in like very few who didn't have to deal with those repercussions. And I do like that about them, where it's like not, and the anthropology degree makes that make a lot more sense, where it's like, no, sometimes it's luck of the draw. Sometimes people just get left to die. But like, I'm sorry, if there were real planets that people were living on nowadays, I 1,000% believe billionaires who tried to populate them would leave them to die if it was a money-making loss issue for them.
Absolutely.
So like,
that was, I think, my biggest issue with this book was that plotline, storyline was not delved into more. That it seems like Wells brings up these really interesting things in the back half of the book, and there's so much action, and it's just like it raced through some of these things. And I was like, I kind of would have liked to have sat with some of these things a little more and learned more about this, because that's a mortifying thing to learn.
Well, like this, like kill switch, like it doesn't seem like we sit enough with the fact that there's like this warring colony who are going back and forth, and like this stuff that got left over really affected them. And yeah, it feels like Murderbot's like, well, my people need to get out of here, so we need to get out of here. And I do hope stuff like this gets dealt with more in future books, because we seem to be talking a lot about colonies and how like they're often left to die. But it definitely wasn't really dealt with in this book. You're right.
No. I wonder if it will be something that's touched on much, or if it's just going to be something that we kind of get like, here's some more action that we're working through this. Here's some more action that we're working through this. I do know that the next novella is actually in like timeline order ahead of this full length book.
Oh, okay.
So, because I saw somebody the other day that said that the order that you should read them is all the novellas and then the full length book. And I was like, well, that would have been good to know, because now we're going back in time.
Well, but we famously don't do enough research. So
famously did not know.
We famously did not know that. So we'll go a little bit backwards in time. It sounds like you said.
I mean, publication date, we're going in the correct order.
Right.
But I guess in terms of the story making sense, we're going back in time. But I do think that maybe like something like this, that we just learned this like catastrophic information, in my mind, is something that Wells is maybe not as interested in diving into, but bringing up themes like this and, you know, saying these terrible things happen in the world, this terrible thing has happened in the world, opening our eyes to these things that are there, and then focusing back in on the characters, which are more so the core of what she's interested in writing.
I don't know. I mean, I think I trust her a little bit more to maybe delve into that in future novellas.
Oh, I definitely trust her to do it. I just don't know if it will happen.
It probably won't happen in the next book, at least it sounds like. So that's good to know that we shouldn't expect that. But I wonder in like the novella coming out in November, if that might deal a little bit more with the colonies, especially since like we've had 2 books now where it really does a deep dive into like preservation. Ox like had this colony that was established via virtue like luck of the draw. What did you think about the theme at the end of the book where they're talking about Murderbot having almost a duty to teach the other sec unit about like its feelings and the way it can live without the governor module?
I don't know if I agree with that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's also complicated because it's like, how do you go about a situation like this? This is an unprecedented situation. Like they've never had something like this happen before. And it would be helpful to have another being that has gone through this help someone else through it. But at the same time, I don't know that you can be like, this is your responsibility, Murderbot. That's not fair.
Well, I always like to say life isn't always fair, but sometimes it's unfair in your favor. But like I do.
But is it unfair in Murderbot's favor in this situation?
No. I felt a lot of complicated feelings about that too, because there is like that thing to be said about like this isn't Murderbot's job. Murderbot just like gave this unit like its own authority to help it out. But I do like how the book handled it, at least not with the way people were talking to Murderbot, because I didn't always agree with the way people talk to Murderbot, because again, the devaluation of it and everything. But I liked that like they kind of came to terms with like Art just needed to explain it to Murderbot in a different way of like, hey, you learned through television and it doesn't know that. It had to discover that all on its, you had to discover that all on your own. Wouldn't it be nice if it had that leg up? And didn't you give it information before? And didn't you open yourself up to allow certain information to be taught? And like, didn't that help it come to terms with like getting rid of its governor module? That's how you got it to agree with you. And Murderbot has this moment of like, okay, well, maybe it's not on me to like treat it like a pet, but maybe it is up to me to be able to get to a place where I can share my own story a little bit more. So it has an understanding it needs. And like, I like that that's where they came to terms with it. Cause although I don't always like, I don't like the fact that lots of people have to share parts of themselves and when they're not ready or they don't want to. And I think that stinks.
Right.
It is also helpful. It is helpful and it is how people learn. Unfortunately, I wish people were better. And like, it's showing that like, hey, these sec units are very similar to humans, just like you and me. Like sometimes we need to hear about someone's experience to believe it. And that sucks, but it does help. And so I like that Murderbot was like, oh, I guess I could give it all these materials and then it's up to it to use them, but then it's not up to me to teach it. And I was like, okay, that's a perfect resolution to this. It's very reasonable.
Yeah, very well said. I really like all of that.
Yeah. So that was just, I don't know. What does everyone else think about the other governor module lists?
What do you think about the baby situation?
Oh my gosh.
Being called a baby.
I got so frustrated with that because I was like, it's not a baby. It's a copy of itself. Like, come on, guys. That's not what this is. And like, I just thought that was a little bit ridiculous of Amena to be like that. Like, I was just like, Amena, you're really showing your age right now. Like, calm down.
I mean, Amena also showed the age with the whole boyfriend scenario too.
Oh my gosh. Like, yes, they're very ridiculous sometimes. But I just, I didn't agree with the fact that it was a child. I just didn't see it that way because Art and Murderbot didn't see it that way. And context is key, people. Like, I understand where it would be easy to be like, well, the argument is that at the base level, you guys are conjoining pretty much your DNA. And it's like, yeah, but that's not true. Like, it's a literal copy of Murderbot. Like, it exists at the same level of like Murderbot and has all the information up until a point of Murderbot. So that's not a child. Like,
it'd be like similar to calling clones children, like we did in Star Wars.
Exactly. Like, this is your child. And also like I feel like that's the most human reaction, to be like, if I
Yeah.
cloned something, it would belong to me. And it's like, no, it wouldn't. Yeah, what a weird thing. I don't know.
Yeah, this book really takes off, I think. It starts out really slow, but then I think it really takes off a lot in the second half.
There was so much plot in the second. I remember we we were like, oh, we won't cover all 10 chapters. And I'm like, maybe we should have. Like, there was so much to this. It's so meaty.
Yeah, the second part of it was really long.
Yeah, it was.
So called that one a little too soon.
Very long. I know. It was just very difficult to get through all of it. But yeah, overall, I mean, this was a good book. Overall, it's still like, I would say 4.25 stars for me. So the worst Murderbot doesn't come close to the worst Wheel of Time book we read.
And I've seen other people that do agree with that sentiment, that they're like, yeah, this is the worst of the Murderbot books, but that's like not even like in the realm of like bad books, because it's a Murderbot book and Martha Wells' writing is so good. So
like, I feel bad because I feel like I graded her according to the novellas, where I was like, I know you can do so much better, so you're not getting an A+ from me. And it's like, oh God, didn't you hate when that happened to you in school, where you're like, but my A is still other people's A+? Like, sure. Yeah. So
yeah, I know what you're saying. But yeah, I think for me, I'm at like a 4.5, 4.75. And that's maybe it's also for me, maybe one of the books that I'm like, this might be my least favorite.
Yeah.
But I really think that this is the fan service novel. I'm just really sticking to that it's the fan service novel that ended up happening because people were like, we need a long Murderbot. And Martha Wells was like, okay, I will take the money. And we were all like, we understand.
That sounds good to us. Thank you
we'll
very
give
much.
It to you.
Yes, we will. I will still buy it and tab so many pages.
Pre-order now.
But I mean, we have one more book that's already out, and then we have one coming out in November. So,
so we just have like a couple more episodes on Murderbot, and then we're into our indie intermission.
I know, and that's a great segue, Laura. Thank you so much. Everybody,
I could feel you going there.
Be voting on Twitter and Instagram in the final round of Indie Mission,
it's
guys.
The finale on Wednesday, right?
It's the finale on Wednesday, guys.
And also The Mandalorian comes out, so a lot of things are happening this day.
Hold on. Is it? No, because tomorrow we do... Oh, yeah, no, it's going to be Wednesday because we do each side on each day. So, yeah, it will be Wednesday. Guys, it's the finale of Indie Mission. Go over, like, all the votes count today. So,
yes.
We don't know who's in on it because we record this ahead of time.
We recorded this ahead of time, but there are awesome books.
There's
no bad options.
No bad options. Make sure you're voting right now. Final one. It's the big one. And make sure you're reading about Indie Palooza books on ourpod.com. That's OWWRpod.com. We have some great stuff going on right there. Laura reviewed Seasons of Albadan this week. And we had some other ones that we just like to highlight. We have been loving doing Indie Mission. We love all the authors. Everyone's been so nice to each other and so nice overall.
Check out all of those books.
Yes,
I've noticed a couple of authors on Twitter have said they've had sales recently, so be on the lookout for those. But all of these authors have been so supportive of us. We love interacting with them, and they are so supportive of each other, which is something that I really appreciate about that writing community and that indie author community, that they're so supportive of each other. So check out all of those books.
Make sure you're doing that. Make sure that you're following along on Our Pod on Instagram and Twitter. We're doing so much over there right now. So just keep an eye out for everything, guys. And thanks everyone who's participating right now, who aren't authors. Make sure you're reading all their books, but thank you so much for voting or for retweeting. Every little bit helps. And also
thanks for listening today.
Thanks for listening today. And please make sure to rate, review, and subscribe. Rating, reviewing, and subscribing is a great way to get other people involved in the conversation. If you want to be involved in even more of the conversation, we have our own Patreon, where we've done some great bonus episodes and some great extra voting. I believe I'm going to be posting an extra vote there for today for Indie Mission. So make sure you're going on there to cast an extra vote. It could be the winning vote, guys.
This could
So
call it.
This could call it. So make sure you're voting over there and just,
and then also listen to our
support.
Kissing the Coronavirus episode.
Oh my gosh, listen to that episode like yesterday because it's excellent. Download. And if you guys do a $10,
possibly some of our best work.
Possibly some of our best work. Oh my gosh. Listening to us talk about a green monster who, spoilers, murders the main character.
Are you
COVID? Are you COVID? Yes, I say my name. Say
it. Say who I am.
But yes, so just thank you everyone for listening. Rate, review, and subscribe, and join us next week as we cover the next novella of the Murderbot Diaries. Lord
Fugitive Telemetry. I cannot say
Fugitive
words.
Telemetry.
Gosh, why can I not say words?
Cover this 2021 book, The Plot. Be ready, guys. Bye.
Bye.